So hi, one of the Good Noise Podcasts. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with,
Micah from Pillea.
and we're gonna ask some questions today. I'm gonna start. So, what inspired the creation of the project, and what does the band name mean?
Yeah, so the project started to be like my bucket of current songwriting. I've had a couple bands over time, but I wanted to have like a proper, more solo-y thing. Obviously collaborating with people too, but something a little bit more self-guided. And the next was the band name. It's a misspelling of the plant Pillea, I think they're pronounced. So I had one of those plants. I was seeing them around my partners, and he was like, maybe that's the name.
All
So
right.
then a misspelling, so it's Googleable.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask, was that on purpose or was that like, oh shoot? Okay, good to know.
Signed
Good
up
to
for
know that
all
was
your
on
socials
purpose.
the wrong way.
Exactly. So congratulations on your newest release, Swell. How do you feel
Thank-
the response to it so far? Of course, it slapped. I really liked it.
Oh yeah, thanks. No, it's been terrible. No,
Suck. No one's even listened
Oh
to
my
it.
god.
no, it's been good. Like I had no idea what it would be like launching the project in a pandemic and not being able to play shows because I feel like for me, being in bands, shows are always a huge part of it. So it feels a little strange, but it's also been good to figure it out this way as well. And I feel like sometimes you put it off. So, anyways, response has been great. I've been really happy with it. It's cool to get it out there.
Mhm.
And this was actually your debut album, I'm pretty sure. What was that rollout like? As you mentioned, like we're still kind of in a pandemic. So what was that process like trying to get the word out there?
Yeah, I mean, trying to like line up a reasonable set of like songs, certain dates, figuring out your singles and your premieres and trying to line up helping getting people to help you tell the story of it all. So um my sort of plan has been more to backload it and that I think for a new project people like want the music and then now I'm like I'm filming a live session soon and I have like some other stuff that might be in person if things are good and if not it'll be digital. So yeah, now it's sort of like the follow up and following through, but I think the idea was more to like get it out to people as quick as possible and then
Oh,
like yeah, let them have the record sort of thing.
That's fair. Yeah.
solid, yeah.
So, what made you choose "The Wait" as the lead single for the record?
So with the weight, it's the first song on the record. So I actually did it number two, but it is the first song on the record. It's actually the first song I wrote on the record, which was like yeah, I think it just has like a sort of overarching like chillness to it. When I
Mhm.
had both of the songs out, I sort of wanted them to like play into each other.
Okay.
The song is the first one that I put out, Great Success, was so like poppy,
Mhm.
and this
Mhm.
song is like so down tempo. And
Yeah.
so I sort of wanted to showcase like everything that would be in the record, I guess. But it's so hard picking singles sometimes because you're like, oh, this song's good for this reason, but that doesn't make it a single, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
The Wait may be a funny single, but also I thought it like showcased some different sounds on the album. So yeah.
That's fair. You actually mentioned that it was the first track on the album. What made you start the album off with more of a slower track rather than, as you said, the more poppier single that you put out?
Yeah, I wanted to like the record doesn't necessarily have like a direct narrative, but
Hmm.
it definitely has an emotional narrative, you
Mhm.
know? And it's sort of like I think it describes a lot of my process in music in that like I often come to music when I'm like distressed,
Hmm.
and the Wait is like a very down tempo sort of like you're feeling down song. And then when I'm like have played music or have seen music or have listened to music, by the end of it, I'm usually like pretty ecstatic and I like love life so much.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's sort of the impetus to have it at the start. It's like coming to the music in sort of a little bit of like a maybe a little bit beat up but persevering way to build up throughout the whole record.
All right.
That's very smart. Okay, that's sick. That's sick. So is there any meaning behind the album name or cover art?
Mm, yeah, for sure. Swell. So the album name Swell. It's also like sort of a mantra idea throughout the whole record, and that like I'm a pretty like I live a very like first world, very privileged life. I have a very easy existence, all things considered, but still, like, in my spare time, I find like my favorite thing to do is to make music that sort of complains.
That's fair. That's fair.
So it's like Swell in that way is about like me as an individual, like swelling up with these feelings, you know, and like
All
when
right.
sort of and it's like so the record as a whole, I guess, is just me like making a joke at myself of being like, oh, okay, man, like this is your big swell.
Yeah.
But that's just more being like, yeah, lighthearted about it, or just like how you can feel so full of emotion, and
Hmm.
that's what the record was for me. The cover, the art was done by my friend Paige Sabaru, and she's a collage artist. Check out her work. Her name's Complex Gloss on Instagram. And I really wanted to collaborate with Paige on this one because the record was sort of pieced together. Like half of it was done, or sort of like half of the tracking was done with my brother playing drums on it, and the other half was sort of more like bedroomy or like program drums, or my friend Tom played drums on another song. So it was sort of like a piecemeal, you know?
Yeah.
And that idea of like the collage, I just sort of told Paige, like, run with it, do whatever you want, but I want your art because I feel like the album itself is a collage, you know?
Hmm.
So like a very visual thing. And she did this amazing motif in the middle of a bird. And it's like, I really resonated with that because I feel like the record has a collective vision, even if it is a bunch of like discrete sort of pieces.
Okay. I
That's
love it.
amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
So can you tell me a little bit about your writing process for this album?
Mm. Yeah, so the first two songs, I started writing, me and my partner, who's also like an artist, and she like she's working on her first movie right now. So she like
Oh,
wrote,
damn.
yeah,
That's huge.
yeah, she wrote a script, but like not like a feature length, but like a
Mhm.
short, and she's got
Still.
a crew and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, so she does all different kinds of stuff, and she wanted to do some kind of writing, because she's initially like a photographer. Anyways, it's like we just decided we needed to like get away for a bit and just write and just like have the space to write, because I find in our day-to-day lives it's so easy to not create space to get your head there. Like it can take a couple hours to just get somewhere creatively.
Hmm.
So we just like wanted to get out of town for a bit and do some writing. And yeah, that's where it started. Really, I wrote two songs there. I wrote The Wait and I wrote Swell.
Hmm.
Then Great Success was sort of like just like in the bedroom writing. And then some of the other stuff was like, yeah, a lot of the other stuff was sort of in bedroom. But normally I start with a demo and I refine it and I write the lyrics a couple times and I re-record everything a couple times, and then it just eventually I need to give up.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really like an iterative process, but sometimes things are quick and sometimes they're not. I've always recorded my own music, so like that's part of the writing process, like getting it into my computer. So yeah.
Solid. All right. So I want you to pick your favorite lyric off of this album and tell us the meaning behind it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think the most this one's really really straightforward, but I think it's also like mantra of the record again. So it's like a
Mhm.
good motif for the whole thing. And my favorite lyrics of mine that I write are about it's like really summarizes a way I feel deeply in in like a couple sentences. So the lyric would be, can I build a new understanding of service while still respecting my own needs? And that was like a lot of the process of Swell, of like trying to be true to myself, but also like I'm very community minded,
Hmm.
and I like record a lot of bands and stuff, and I like, put too much time into it. But so I run myself thin, but then I sort of like, I love it so much and I feel like it's what I should be doing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's striking a balance of being like, I have these projects and I love doing them. It's so good, but also like I gotta like take care of myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Man.
Yeah. So where was your headspace at while you were writing this album?
Sort of all over the place, because it like started when we sort of took that trip, and I felt like it was like a period to sort of pause and try to summarize some things. And then like the song Away I wrote in the pandemic. So it's like that had a very specific like early pandemic vibe that was it's really just like all of this, like once again, I live a pretty cushy life, all things considered. The like it was just for me, the pandemic was just needing to stay home, you know?
Yeah.
And but at the same time, so like all that was fine, and I like wasn't sad about that, but I just like missed people, like so.
Yep.
It's like, oh my god, I just like it really that was sort of it. So it's just being overcome with that. Whereas some of the other songs are literally like more like esoteric about what I'm trying to do in my life, not just being like, I miss hanging out. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. As you mentioned, like you're very community oriented. So like the pandemic must have hit you hard then.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love booking shows and like doing sound at shows and recording my friends' bands and all these things. Every second of my free time, I'm sort of like out with people doing stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. I think it's been hard for everyone.
Yeah.
But definitely I miss the community aspect of music, and too just having like done it for you know, not forever, but after a while, like you're sort of doing DIY stuff for like a decade, and then you're like, why am I still here, you know? But ultimately it's the community. Like I love that aspect of it.
So how did the track list come about? Did you just kind of randomly shuffle it until it fell together, or did you kind of have a plan as you were writing?
Yeah, so for track sequencing, I definitely like there's like a sequence to albums that you find or people talk about, and just like being into making records, I felt like I was like trying to fit that sequence. So the first song, I feel it's a bit of a slow come up, but it's like it gets you ready, and then song 2 needs to be like, you know, the summer hands at the car window song, and then it was sort of like flow, and then the next song that I feel was like really placed was the second last one, Away, and that's sort of like there's like that again end of record sort of banger, but not the last song. And then the last song I felt like it was like the most happy, and I really wanted to end on that like happy note, and it sort of has a solo and you know, a big crescendo at the end. So yeah. So there like half of them were sort of hard placed, and the rest were like, where's it gonna fit?
Okay. That makes sense.
So what band or artist influence do you can hear the most on this record?
Yeah, that's so one might be like, okay, the first one I'd say like would be, I listened to a lot of Oso Oso like right before starting Pillea, you know? So I feel a real like definitely all of Jay's records had a big influence, but growing up it was the Weaker Thans and the Get Up Kids for sure. I was always like a little bit more of like I could play my songs on acoustic guitar, strummy sort of writer. Like I'm not like a traditional like noodler. But and like I like playing guitar, but I sort of like go more on like riffs, you know. I'm just like I play bass in more bands than guitar. But yeah, that stuff. And then in recent times, so much I got into Third Eye Blind like big time. That sort of took over. Yeah.
All right. When I was listening to your album, the weirdest combination came to my head. It was Heart Attack Man and Weezer. Does that make any sense? Nice. Yeah, it's
I listened to a lot of Blue. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I listened to Blue album.
Yeah. Blue album's good.
Yeah. Well, that's a cool comparison too. I definitely don't mind it. It's always cool. Like even to I've gotten Motion City Soundtrack. Ooh, and which I love because like, but I only got into that band like this year, like before people were making the comparison. But I was like, I love that you hear that, but like, it wasn't like in the stew, you know?
Yeah. That's fair. All right. So this one should go super, super fast. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this record for new listeners in 3 words.
Sad, but hopeful.
That's good.
I
That's
like
really
that.
good.
And in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling you want your listeners to have while going through the album?
Yeah. I think like stricken with the realities of life, but also it's sort of like light and like I try not to be too. I try to like give a little moment of comic relief here and there. So yeah.
All right.
Solid. It's good. So where do you see the project in the next 5 years? And I know you just released this album, but are you working on anything new?
Yeah. So, I mean, in a big way, like making Pillea was about starting a project I could grow into, and I could sort of keep putting stuff out. So, another record, I think it's also gonna be like an album band. You know, I'll mostly work on records. I would love to get one done as soon as possible. I probably have a half dozen demos that are sort of coming together right now. It's like getting the band geared up to do some performance, and I would love to this summer track some stuff with them. So yeah, definitely another record coming, but it's it's going to be a little bit of a process. But in the next 5 years, I hope I have like another 4 records out. I don't know.
One
I
a
like
year.
want to I maybe not that much, but like at least 3. That would be cool. I love projects who are consistent and like keep refining the thing. It's like, it's like the project's like rough marble the first year, and then they keep adding the details, and before you know it, there's like this silk veil of marble, and you're like, how do they do it? But it took a decade.
Yeah.
So the complete
Solid.
opposite of Weezer.
Yeah.
For the last couple of questions, we're actually going to shift away from music and go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Oh, I would probably have. I think I would have like lobster and with like a bourbon and on the rocks. Yeah.
Very fancy. All right.
Well, I'm from like Eastern Canada, and I like there's a lot of fishing around and things like that, and it's very rural, so it's like sort of it's like the fancy that I grew up with.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes
And
sense.
bourbon, it's like I don't want to be too bloated from something else, and that's the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just imagine the pain of death while also being bloated. It's like
I never would have thought of that.
It's 2 different pains.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. So if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
I think I'd live in Springfield.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. That's immediately what came to mind. I've been watching some Arrested Development otherwise, but like I could like actually live in Orange County. So
Yeah.
All right.
I guess Springfield's not real. So yeah, I don't know. It'd be cool to like hang out with Otto, go to Moe's. Yeah.
Sounds
All right.
good.
So I have the honor of asking the last question, and every single person we've spoken to have said that it is the most important question. What's your favorite color?
Ooh. Probably green. Green.
Specific shade.
Probably like I have this sweater that I really like. That's sort of a deepish forest. I really like. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably because I wear a lot of black, so the green sort of like it's got something.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe that's in the next 5 years. Maybe I'll grow into a new shade. That could be nice. Like
That'd be cool.
Just different shade of green. Not as dark. So as I said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Yeah, go listen to Swell. Thanks so much for having me. I'm putting in a music video for Great Success. That's coming out soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And then live session coming up, and the band is ripping, and it's I'm excited. I'm very thrilled. So yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Of course.
course.
Thank you for sitting down with us. This has been Pillea and Where the Good Noise podcast.